when I did quit, or when we did become like full-time creators, I remember there definitely being like, oh my gosh, like how could you get rid of that job security or whatever and all that stuff. And my counterpoint to that has always been, I actually think it's more risky to be in a 9 to 5 because you can be laid off at any time. Yeah, you can bust your butt and like, suck up to your company and like all this stuff. But if times get rough, and if there's an economic downturn, you better believe that your company's not going to think twice about laying you off or letting you go. In fact, if you have a robust presence on social media, or you're a creator and you have multiple income streams, you can't get fired overnight, right? Yeah, maybe your income will start to slowly decline, but it's not going to be a cliff. It's not going to be a precipitous drop, right? Whereas if you're fired from your 9 to 5, that's quite precipitous, right? So it's like, I actually think it's a safer bet for the next generation than a quote unquote 9 to 5 job.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to My Social Life. This is the podcast where you can hear the real stories behind the people on social media. I'm your host, Jacob Kelly. As always, today's podcast is powered by TRUFAN. And before we get into today's conversation with Justin Moore, there's a couple things that we need to go over first. If you enjoy today's podcast, be sure to leave us a positive rating and review, share this episode with a friend, and subscribe to the show. Put up brand new interviews every single Monday, and a brand new takeaways episode is an audio exclusive where I sit down and break down the most recent podcast episode of the week every single Thursday. Now, without further ado, I'm very excited to present to you my conversation with Justin Moore. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to My Social Life. I'm your host, Jacob Kelly. As always, today's podcast is powered by TRUFAN. Today on the show, we are joined by Justin Moore. Justin is the CEO and founder of Trending Family, a 7-figure influencer marketing agency. And he's also the creator of Creator Wizard, an online resource that teaches the business of being an influencer. And Justin isn't just talking the talk either. He and his family are walking the walk and have amassed a following over 1.5 million people across all of their social media platforms and earned upwards of $3 million in revenue from being creators. I'm very excited to have him here on the podcast today to talk about his journey, about the business of being a creator. Justin, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. Glad to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. And where I want to start, I want to go back even pre the days of being a creator. Where did you grow up? Because normally I can find something about guests about where they grew up, but I couldn't find anything about where you grew up or your childhood or anything. So can you give us a little backstory on that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, actually, in Fremont. So kind of heart of Silicon Valley, I guess you could say. And yeah, grew up my whole childhood here. Graduated, went to college at UCLA, so moved down to LA, and I was down there for many years. So yeah, I moved back up here a little bit after I had my first child. So the Bay Area has always been home.
Okay. And it was UCLA for computer science?
It was UCLA for computer science. Man, the story of how I got into social media and being a creator is kind of wild, because this was not the life path that I saw myself on at all. Like I went to school for engineering. Well, actually, to back up a little bit, I was 100% sure that I was going to be a professional musician when I was younger. I play a bunch of instruments. I've written hundreds and hundreds of songs on all sorts of different instruments. I was in a metal band when I was in high school. I've like trained in opera singing. So it's like a very, very different background. But yeah, I went to school for engineering. And right out of school, I started working in medical devices, actually. And transitioned. So while I was working in medical devices, I went back to school to get my MBA with concentration in entrepreneurship. Around time I was graduating from college is when I met my now wife. And so, I thought that was my career. I thought I was going to be in medical devices. That was the track I was going to be on. But then here in the background, my wife, April, started a YouTube channel like back in 2009 now, maybe it was. When she started her first channel. This was way back in the day before there was a partner program, way back in the day before you could make money, before that was even a thing. And she honestly wanted to, she hadn't never even watched YouTube before she got with me. And I was like, she thought it was like cat videos and stuff like that. Right. And I was like, no, there's like a lot of really cool stuff on here. And then she started watching other kind of the early OG YouTubers like Michelle Phan and, some of the beauty gurus, I guess you could say. And I kept telling her, you should do this. You're amazing at this. And so finally she started doing it. She started recording her first videos on a webcam that we had. So it was like super pixelated and like jumpy and all this stuff. We edited her first videos on like Windows Movie Maker. It's like crazy stuff, right? But that was the how this all started. And so I was in business school. She was making these YouTube videos, and it just started growing. Brands started knocking. And she was like, I don't know what to do with this. And so I was like, here I am in business school, like, I could read this contract. And so, I started helping out in the background. And then I started, people started getting really interested in our relationship because we weren't married yet. And so I started making cameos. I think one of the earliest videos I was in was like boyfriend does my makeup tag or something like that. Right. So I did like an absolutely terrible job. But, it was like that was the start of like, I think our social media journey. So she had her beauty and lifestyle channel. Then we started a vlog channel together before we had kids. We started a cooking, she started a cooking channel where, so we started doing a lot of food. And so, over the years of us creating content, we've just had the ability to work with literally hundreds of different brands and all sorts of different consumer categories. Whether it's food or consumer electronics or retail or travel, or just so many opportunities have come up over the years. And so, about 6 years ago, is when I decided to start Trending Family, which was my influencer marketing agency, and it's focused on family friendly creators, right? And so the real opportunity that we saw was that there is um, so much interest from a consumer perspective in uh, vlogging, kind of like home movies 2.0, right? But brands were still not really quite there yet to really understand the value of that. And so we had been seeing it personally, right, from our own channels, and I was like, this is going to be a really important content vertical for brands, especially because so many want to find partners who are wholesome, who aren't super controversial, who aren't talking about things that are very polarizing, right? Aren't swearing a lot in their content, this type of thing. And so that was the wedge that we've always had, which was like we're going to work with like help execute campaigns for brands that's really important to them. And so I know that's a lot, but like that really has been kind of our journey. And like I said, we've been doing this for over 10 years, full-time creators for over 8 years. So it's this has been the family business for for the last decade.
I like it. There's a lot to unpack there. One of the first things I wanted to ask you about was, so you went to school for entrepreneurship. You said this was your MBA, was in with a specialization in entrepreneurship. And I have a
Mhm.
quote written down here. You were always doing different harebrained startup type schemes before getting into the creator space. And I'm curious about one of them because you were an art broker for a couple of years, right?
I was. Man, you did some digging before this interview. I'm very impressed. Yes, I was an art broker. So what I would do is I would wake man, bless my wife's heart. I would wake her up at literally 5 a.m. on the weekends to go to estate sales, go to garage sales, go to flea markets to try to find art. I even wrote an ebook about how to flip art. And man, I was like, that was like my hustle, right? So I would like basically like schooled myself on how to appraise art, how to understand the provenance of a piece, understanding. So I would like, I'll just give you a quick slice. I would go and analyze completed auctions on eBay as well as local auction houses to see what stuff was selling for certain artists. My specialization was like California art. And I would basically just go and hunt for a group of about 100 artists. And surprisingly, there is a lot of art. That some of these artists were very prolific, especially in California. So I was able to find bronzes and paintings and things like that I was able to flip. So it was fun, and I made tens of thousands of dollars doing it, but it was absolutely exhausting and not scalable. So so what my wife ended up doing was much more of a scalable thing. But yeah, that was a blast.
Knowing that you specialized in California artists, do you remember if you happened to purchase paintings from Emma Chamberlain's dad, Michael Chamberlain?
I never did. No. Yeah, no, that was not, honestly, sculptures were turned to be one of the most profitable things, I think, because people didn't paint. I think art in general, like paintings especially, um somehow people I think attribute more value to it, but bronzes and sculptures in general people don't, right? Especially if they look very old and rusty, right? And so, in actuality, those types of pieces of art, those sculptures and things like that, tend to be worth a lot more money than art in general, which people hold on to and would probably want more money for at a garage sale or something like that. So, So yeah, sculptures tended to be the thing I would focus on more.
And so when you're doing negotiations for different art pieces, how much did the experience doing that come to benefit you when you started negotiating with brands?
Great question. Um, I think what it really comes down to is, I teach creators this all the time, is like understanding your worth and your value of what you're bringing to the market. So, a piece of art to a collector who specializes in that artist or that format is oftentimes going to be willing to pay a premium for that because there is scarcity, right? And same with being a creator. When a brand approaches you and wants to partner with you, there's a reason that they're doing that because you're you, right? Yes, there's brands who look at creators as commodities and things like that. But in my experience, like oftentimes, like brands are reaching out because there's something very specific about you, about your content, about the way in which you're connecting with your audience that they really value. And so that oftentimes can help in the negotiation because once you have more confidence, I think creators are able to price themselves more accurately.
Do you remember the first time your wife had a brand reach out trying to do a deal with her? Like, was that mind blowing at that point in time?
It was absolutely mind-blowing. It was one of the, early brands that I can remember, was a Korean skincare and cosmetics brand that was like, importing, products into the US. And we forged a deal with them. I think it was like a 6-month partnership where they were paying us $700 a month for like 6 months. And to us at the time, I mean, that's still a lot of money, but at the time, we were, a year or 2 out of college. Like, that was a lot of money to us, right? Because that was like basically, I think around at that time, it was like half our rent or maybe a little bit more than half our rent, And so like to us, that was absolutely mind-boggling. And that was around the time where um I don't think we ever could have anticipated where it has grown into today, but like at the time, that was, the first kernels of the idea of like, wow, this could be something. Imagine if we could get 10 more of these types of deals.
And how was her channel? Because you said her channel blew up pretty quickly. Was she doing anything specific that led to it blowing up, or was it just a first mover advantage? She was early to the platform and she was gaining followers that way.
I think both. I think there definitely was an element of being, very early on YouTube, but especially like um, the major like inflection point or differentiation I could say between the OG, YouTubers or creators is that early on you could not make money. If there was no brand deals really that people were doing, and then there was no AdSense either, no partner program, and so the first creators on the platform were doing it for the love of the craft. And that was my wife is in that boat, right? Because she just wanted to find a community of other creators and other people who were interested in cosmetics. That was like the very first thing, right? And so I like to think that the mindset going into that is very different than it is today because lots of creators, lots of influencers start creating content specifically with the with the intention of like monetizing it and making money from it, right? So I think that's like a major difference, I guess you could say. And so, but yes, that's one thing. But on the other hand, I do think my wife is, oh man, she's absolutely hilarious. She is like she's extremely charismatic, and so I think that also plays a part. She's just got that natural, personality for being on camera. I think.
Would you say kind of the cosmetics, the beauty side of YouTube has been kind of the earliest to adapt to the changes? Like I have had Lauren Luke on the podcast, and I believe she was the first ever YouTuber with her own makeup line, and that was back in I think late 2000s, early 2010s. And I just feel like the beauty industry is always kind of at the forefront of these changes. Is that something you've noticed through your time, just kind of watching and being a part of this industry?
I think so, and I think one of the other reasons is that beauty in particular, there is a built-in expectation of capitalism, also, right? Where it's like you're applying the makeup and things like that, and so it's like to be able to get that look or to be able to achieve that skincare result or regimen or whatever, you got to buy the product, right? So I think there is a certain element of why beauty brands in particular have adapted to it. Because I mean, you think back to the early days of like QVC or something or HSN, right? Like that, beauty products in general have succeeded in that type of format. And we could talk about live commerce as well later, because that's something that we're also very excited about, that we're getting into heavily. So it's like, I think that's one of the reasons is that it's just like a very natural extension of like the format is like, yes, I'm going to make a makeup tutorial, but I'm also going to sell the product and link all the products in the info box, right?
Exactly. And you mentioned too how you started getting incorporated in the videos just through just kind of being on her channel, and then you made the joint channel. And correct me if I'm wrong, you were going daily at one point, right?
That was brutal, man. We were doing daily vlogs for almost 3 years, maybe more. We literally did not miss an upload for over 1,000 days, and on top of that, we were doing content on the other channels too. So it was like an absolutely insane amount of content, and that's a whole nother story, man. Of like what that does to you psychologically. But I will say, I mean, that definitely attributed to a lot of our growth because once people could, uh, you know, come to expect a regular upload cadence. So there's a certain amount of like momentum, or I don't know, I guess you could say it's just like traction that comes with, or exponential growth that comes with having that level of dedication.
And you started daily vlogging, I believe, like 2 years before Casey Neistat ever did, right?
Man, I honestly don't know. I don't know when Casey started vlogging, but yes, it definitely was before that. I don't know exactly when, but I will say our vlogging was definitely not the level of quality of Casey and I. Ours was literally much more about like it felt like a home movie. It was like a documentation of our day, not quite as stylistic, but definitely.
And so I kind of want to get into what did you learn about yourself doing the daily vlog? Because I had Alex Gastoy on here probably over a year ago at this point, and she daily vlogged, and she said, at least especially in today's current form of YouTube, you don't daily vlog for channel growth anymore, but you daily vlog for personal growth. So I'm curious what you learned about yourself after 3 years of daily vlogging.
Well, man, I mean, I think probably the biggest thing is, you don't know your limits until you daily vlog, right? From a, work-life balance perspective, because if you thought you were busy before, try daily vlogging. And especially if you're the one editing the videos. I know a lot of vloggers have editors now, so they upload the footage, and maybe they're on the other side of the globe or something, and then when they wake up, they got the vlog ready to upload, right? But that wasn't it. We edited. I edited. My wife and I for a long period, I did it. So it was like you end the day and then I have to disappear into the room for 2 hours or 3 hours to edit the video. So it's like, um, the number one thing that I can think of is it's just like it pushes your limits of like what how much you can actually do in a day. So that's one thing. The other thing too, I would say is that, um, to be able to when you vlog your life and when your life becomes your business, and that's something that you're monetizing in the way in which you make a livelihood, um, you have to become very comfortable with, judgment and criticism, right? And understanding that that just comes, as a part of putting yourself out there on the internet. And so I think that definitely was like a big learning. We definitely went through it, man. Like we had trolls. We still have trolls to this day, but like, the height of our vlogging career when we had a lot of eyeballs on our content and things like that. It was hard. Not gonna lie, it was very difficult to um, be subjected to vitriol in the comment section and things like that. I think YouTube has done a lot to try to curb some of that with algorithmic improvements and things like that. But back in the day, it got to the point where it was like we were afraid to wake up and see what the top comment was on a vlog because it would just not be fun. And so we definitely that was the lowest, but we were definitely on the kind of the opposite end of that now. But yeah, it can be very challenging. I think my wife and I were very lucky to have each other as a support system to kind of like when she was down about something mean someone said, I could like pick her up, but like and like vice versa. But if you're a solo vlogger or a solo creator who doesn't necessarily have that support system or a therapist or like people who really understand what it's like to expose yourself in that way, it's tough. It really is tough, especially when you're younger, for sure.
And is there a way to kind of build up that thick layer of skin for those comments, or is it just having them happen over and over again to the point where you're used to it? Is that the only way to kind of that roll off?
I think that the evolution for us was that initially we were very nervous about deleting comments, moderating our community in this way because we felt like, um, you know, we felt like just we weren't able to make that step. But once we gained the confidence to basically say, you know what, this is our community. We want to foster a positive environment for everyone, not just us, but everyone else in the comment section too. So, because what would happen too, it wasn't just us that were being like cyberbullied. It was like people in the comment section, like other people were like ganging up on each other, and it just became toxic at one point. And so we just started taking a very active role in moderating the community and making it a much more positive place for people. And that was like the best thing that we ever did, honestly. Once we took control of like, you know what, this is our platform, this is our life. If we want to maintain this, just like a much more positive atmosphere for people to be around here and hang out here, that we needed to make that change.
I'm still having a bit of a tough time getting my head around the fact that you daily vlog plus had 3 other channels, the cooking channel, the makeup channel, and you also had your advice from Justin channel as well, right? And so talk to me about the idea for that one, because that was all talking head videos, right? People would just message in questions and you would answer, give them advice on camera, and that was essentially the channel, right?
That was it. Yeah, I would talk about relationship advice, like education advice, career advice, like you name it. I when I was in junior high, they started this program called the peer counseling program. So it was kind of cool actually. It was like they nominated a handful of people to basically give advice to other students, other like your friend. And the idea behind it was like it's easier to like talk to a peer than it is to like a adult, right? And so from very early on, I've just been like helping people with their problems and with life, and so I just kind of all people have always gravitated to me for that. So it was a lot of fun doing that for a while.
That's interesting because I was we called them the peer helpers in high school. I did that on my
Wow,
whole 4 years of high school. So
that's crazy.
yeah, yeah, no. So I understand that. That's just it's a
Hmm.
great program. It's a great
Hmm.
program. I'll say that.
Hmm.
And kind of looking back on those early days of YouTube, what did friends and family think? Because it was not where it was today, where you like becoming a full time YouTuber and committing this much to YouTube was normal. Like this had to be completely different. So, what was your immediate friends and family thinking?
They really didn't get it, to be honest. Some of them did, but a lot of them just really didn't get it. Every time that we told someone what we did for a living, literally 99.9% of the time, they would be like, so how do you make money doing that? Right? People just didn't get it, right? But today I think it's pervaded the cultural zeitgeist to a certain degree that it's like people get it, right? The average person scrolls their Instagram feed and you follow any sort of creators or celebrities or influencers that you see, oh, paid partnership with X brand, right? So it's like people get that you can make money as an influencer, right? So it's a much easier conversation now. But yeah, back in the day, 7 years ago, especially, I quit my medical device job 6 weeks after my first son Liam was born. So he's 7 now. So it's been 7 years since I quit. My wife quit earlier than me, but like, yeah, like 7 years ago, like being a social media creator 7 years ago, that was like not a thing, right? So it definitely was met with a lot of blank stares whenever we would talk about that.
Were you able to build friendships with other creators at that time, kind of having that bond of being creators and no one else understanding you but each other?
I mean, that definitely every time that we went to a conference, an industry conference like VidCon or Playlist Live or Vlogger Fair or something like that, inevitably we would meet up with other YouTubers, other creators and we became fast friends with them, and we would just have what we would call YouTube therapy, right? Where we would sit in a room and just like talk, get it all out, and talk about like, the topic of burnout is a much more frequent topic in, um, you know, news articles and just, people talk about mental health and things like that much more regularly than they did back then. And man, like we were some of the first, I think, creators and influencers to like experience what that was like, and we all just kind of had to cope with it together.
Mhm. If I were to ask you, what is some of your favorite memories from the first few years on YouTube? What comes to mind?
Yeah, I know it seems like based on a lot of the questions you've been asking that a lot of the experience that we had in the early days was like not great, but I actually mostly have overwhelmingly positive memories about it, honestly. Like for me, um, and I'm sure my wife would feel the same. There's like two main things that come to mind. Like number one, um, is just the novelty of it all, right? Like it just felt so new and so kind of like bleeding edge, that was exciting, like not knowing where the ceiling was. It was like, wow, a brand is going to pay us like $2,500 to like talk about them in a video. Like that seemed mind blowing to us. And it was like, it still, even now feels like that. But like, especially back then, it was like, there seemed to be no, like if you're in a normal 9 to 5 job, it's like you're limited by your salary that gets like direct deposited in your bank account every 2 weeks, right? Or whatever. But with being a creator, especially if you have a robust um, like revenue strategy, looking across a lot of different streams, you can quickly see like there literally is no limit, right? Especially if you start adding people to your team, start diversifying your business. So it was like I looked at it, especially like focusing on like entrepreneurship and business school and things like that. I very much looked at it as a business from the like very early on, and I kept I kept talking to my wife about like, man, like this can be something. Like if we really do this properly, this can absolutely become a very big thing in our life. And so that was like number one, just the novelty factor of it. Number two is what it has afforded us to be able to do with our children. Like we have almost been around for every single day of our kids' lives. Like from the moment our first son, we have two children, but like when the moment our first son was born, we've basically been able to be home with them, that whole time. And that's like a very unique thing to be able to like be so present in your kids' lives early on. And that's something that we do absolutely not take for granted. And so like those are really the two main things that I think of in terms of like, um, how amazing this experience has been for us over the last decade.
And your kids are in your content as well, especially on the vlog channel. So how cool is it to kind of be building that record? Like your grandkids one day will be able to go back and watch you living like a single one bedroom apartment, studio apartment. They can like there's this record built. How cool is it to have documented this whole thing and to be able to go back and watch days from 4, 5, 6 years ago?
Well, it really not only that, like it absolutely is, and that's another major thing that we think about because it's like if you like I have lots of home movies from my childhood, but I'm not going to go out and like pop in the DVD or pop in the VHS and like scrub through hours of footage and like try to like oh yeah, remember that one time like oh yeah, let me go find like what disc that's on or whatever, what VHS it's on. I'm not going to do that. Right. And with YouTube, it's like literally it's as simple as like going to the channel and like searching in the search bar, like, oh, like I know it was like 2013. Like, let me go find that, video or whatever. Right. And we do it all the time. Oftentimes we will be like sitting at the breakfast table and be like, oh, remember that time we went to like the Dominican Republic to the Nickelodeon resort? Like, let's go watch that vlog. That was so much fun. Right. And it's at your fingertips. So it's like, I think that's like a super powerful thing to be in like special memory to have with their kids. Like I'm very much like a digital first dad. Like like created email addresses for my kids, and every time they do something hilarious or like a cute memory or do something, I just send them a quick email, and then I'm going to give them that email on their 18th birthday. So it's like it's definitely a new type of parenting for sure.
That's awesome. I love that idea. The email address, that's so cool. That's just, yeah, I just think it's just cool to your point, just be able to call up those memories, right? And like, I think like I would pay a ridiculous amount of money to watch like my granddad's daily vlog. You know what I mean? Like if I could go back and do that, like if that was possible, like I would pay so
Mhm.
much money because like I have
Right.
literally no idea what he was like at that age. So just it's
Mhm.
cool. I think the vlog is such a cool thing. And like I always try to do it myself, but I always start not daily, definitely not daily, but like I'll vlog once and then for a couple weeks in a row, like once a week, and then I'll fall off and I pick it back up. But no, I just think it's so cool. But you're so all the channels now, I have some of the numbers written down here. Correct me if any of these are wrong. $680,000 or 680,000 followers on your wife's main channel, 318,000 on the cooking channel, 339,000 on April and Justin TV, and I believe you're sitting over 40,000 on Creator Wizard. What are some of your tips to grow on YouTube?
Wow. So I think the two main tips that I think about are be consistent and pick a niche, right? That's advice that I think people have been giving for a long time, but it really is true. Because I think everyone says that it's like impossible to grow on social media in today's like hyper saturated landscape of like everyone trying to be a creator. But I literally did a channel audit for a creator in October that had less than 10,000 followers, and she has over 200,000 subscribers now. So she picked a niche. She focuses on hair and skincare, and she does it incredibly well. She's very meticulous. She's very quantitative. She's very research oriented. So it's like, and I've heard the story multiple times across a lot of different creators. So, and there's like very big like Minecraft YouTubers, for example, too, that have blown up over the last like millions of followers over the last like year or two. So it definitely you definitely do need something unique and special in the way in which you execute your create your content and things like that, but it absolutely is doable. But so picking a niche obviously is critical. But consistency, right? When people can come to rely on something from you, Again, like even if it's just like once a week or once every 2 weeks, I don't care what the cadence is, but when you can set that expectation with your audiences, that absolutely helps a lot.
You don't have to give away all your secrets, obviously, but what are some of the things you look for when doing a channel audit? Like if someone could do a quick and dirty channel audit right now after they finish listening to this podcast.
Dude, I am an open book. I will give you away all my secrets, man. That's what I do. Try to help creators grow their businesses. That's like my mission. So my audits actually are focused on brand attraction. So when a brand or an advertising agency lands on your social platforms, so much of what happens behind the scenes is like tire kicking, right? So they'll get a brief for a campaign. A brand will want to, do some sort of seasonal campaign or promotion or product launch or something, and they have a creator persona or customer persona, right? They're like, okay, these are the types of creators that we want to partner with. And so either the influencer marketing manager at the brand or the account executive for the agency will go and start kicking tires. They'll go start looking at social platforms. They'll look at people. Do they think this person would be a good fit? And so there's so much that actually goes into that before they ever reach out to the creator. In fact, when they actually reach out to the creator, they've already probably soft pitched you to the brand already, right? And the brand kind of gave a thumbs up, like, oh yeah, this person looks good, reach out, right? So there's so much. So my audit is related to that. It's like, okay, what is your creator identity? Is it very clear what your what your platform focus is, right? Could a brand envision hiring you, right? Is it like what types of partnerships have you done in the past, right? They go back and they look at past sponsorships, right? Are you creating high quality content? What's the engagement like on your post? What are people saying about it, right? How engaged is your community? So it's things like that. And so I'm doing actually like a paid workshop tomorrow on that very topic about how to attract more brands. So it's like that's kind of my focus. And man, I've done probably by this point like over 250 audits over the last like 3 months. And I have identified like people are making the same mistakes over and over. Like something as simple as like, can the brand contact you? Do you have an email address that's easy to find? Like I'm not joking, man. Like there's some creators with like literally hundreds of thousands of followers, and it's impossible to figure out how to get in contact with. So it's certain things like that.
I relate trying to message people to come on the podcast. Sometimes it's like, cause the DMs are saturated. So, but there's no email. So I take that shot in the dark. I send a DM, but email is definitely the most effective way to get in touch with brands. And so with the agency, when you took the jump from your job to full-time creator, is that when you started the agency? Did you kind of do those two things in tandem?
No, I didn't. So we were full-time creators for a couple of years before I started the agency, or like maybe a year or two, probably like a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. I was thinking about it, but it was like, it was the kind of thing where this is how it happened. Honestly, it was like, we would do a campaign for a brand and then the brand would say, do you know anyone else like you? Right. And so I introduced enough brands like that way to my friends, just like, CCing them on the email, that I was like, you know what? Like I was a product manager, a project manager, like in my, like, I could do this. I could execute campaigns on behalf of the brand and it'd be a lot easier. It would be one contract with me. I would subcontract out with all the, creators. And it would be one brief, one email thread for the brand, like all this stuff, right? So I had kind of done that in my professional life, 9 to 5. So I was like, I can do this, and like that was where the idea came from. It was just like, and then obviously there's like a built-in margin for me to do the campaign management, and so it just kind of felt like a natural fit.
Before diving further into the agency, I'm curious what it felt like to wake up knowing you're a full-time creator for the first time.
Well, I will say that it was something that my wife and I had been planning for a long time. I think a lot of creators think that it's just like, aha, like magically I wake up and I decide just like, I'm going to quit you walk into your office, I'm quit, this kind of thing. But it very much was not like that. It was definitely premeditated. It was the kind of thing where we had set a goal. Like we're very big goal setters. So we were like, okay, the moment that we reach X thousand dollars of incremental income above my 9 to 5, like a cushion, right? So I made, incremental above that income so that when I do quit, I have, I've replaced the 9 to 5 income plus some, like a kind of like a built-in like safety net, right? And so that was the plan, honestly. So it was like, okay, when we reach that point, I have to quit, and I have to, because otherwise I'm never going to, right? And so that was our philosophy behind this whole thing. And the other thing too is like we looked at it as like an opportunity cost, where it was like, okay, if we could spend 60 hours a week, if I could spend 60 hours a week on our creator business, like where could we take this thing? Right. So it was a calculated risk for sure, but it definitely, like the day I woke up after I quit, it was more just like pure bliss because I had a 6-week-old son. and I could spend time with them every day, right? So it was like, but it was like, again, it was like very much planned, and so it felt very satisfying that we were able to execute on the plan.
And so and jumping back to the agency, you mentioned earlier on how it's exclusively with family friendly creators. Is that a big differentiator for you as an agency? Like, I feel like I've never heard of anybody with that specific kind of those rules with the creators they work with. So is that a big differentiator for you in the agency business?
It very much is, because I mean, everyone and their brother, everyone and their sister has an influencer marketing agency these days, because I mean, let's face it, like the barrier to entry is quite low, right? Anyone can throw up a Squarespace page. Anyone can say that they represent influencers non-exclusively. So they can get one brand to convince them to like run their campaigns, and then they go run out there and like email a bunch of influencers to like, hey, this brand wants to work with you, right? So there really is no barrier to entry. On that note, it's very complicated as a brand trying to figure out like, okay, who do I work with? Like, who do I, hire to like help me run this? So that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I mean, that really was the wedge early on. Was like, this is all we're going to do. We're only going to focus on family friendly. And then it's honestly, it's a big enough market, right? There's so many brands that are still quite traditional in the sense that they don't want to like get embroiled in controversy. That this kind of marketing edge has been very effective.
And how do you go about finding the creators to work with? Or do you have essentially at this point, do you have a roster that you know you can go to that you've already vetted? Or how do you go about sourcing influencers for these campaigns?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we definitely have like a roster of folks. Again, like we're non-exclusive. We do not manage anyone exclusively.
Mm.
So they're free to like work with whoever they want. So it's more the kind of thing where we have kind of like a roster of people who have given us permission to essentially pitch on their behalf for opportunities. And ours are it's very actually quite selective, because um as you can imagine, with these types of campaigns, especially family focused, there's oftentimes very, very specific criteria where it's like, we need a mom with kids between the ages of 6 and 12 who lives in like the southeast of the United States or whatever, right? So it's like very, very specific criteria. So oftentimes we will have to go outside of our roster or outside of our network to like find creators who like satisfy this like unicorn, creator that the brand is looking for. And then, yeah, at that point, we'll reach out and be like, hey, this is kind of soft gauge interest and availability for a particular campaign. But yeah, it very much is the kind of thing where we have this kind of roster of folks that we have worked with over and over again.
Okay. And are there, with working with family friendly creators and often with families, is there any guidelines or laws you have to worry about with dealing with children that are part of this deal?
Absolutely. So a lot of this has actually developed over the last couple of years. So there's the COPPA compliance guidelines in the United States, which dictates, like what kids can and can't do, or what advertising, messaging, and things like that you can do. It's very actually critical for brands that have products geared towards children. Especially like young children, infants, and toddlers and things like that. So there definitely is requirements. YouTube also has taken an active role in like, limiting monetization, disabling comment sections on certain channels and content that are kid directed. So there was like a big 2-3 years ago, like tens and thousands of channels got their comment sections disabled, including our family channel, right? So there was like a big swath of channels that kind of got wrapped up in in this, because YouTube over the years has been embroiled in a lot of like brand safety issues where some news outlet will do some like expose on like, oh, this crazy you know ISIS video or whatever was running against an AT&T ad or something, right? Like seriously. And then they'll do this thing and YouTube will be like, oh, we're so sorry, right? And they'll disable that channel and then all this stuff, right? And so a similar thing happened to YouTube where there was like literally a handful of channels that were doing some pretty sick things, in terms of like kid directed content. And then so they basically just painted this broad brush and disabled the comment section on tens of thousands of channels. And so yeah, we haven't had a comment section in multiple years. And so there are definitely, but I will say though that from a brand perspective, every brand's legal team and legal department has their own guidelines of like what creators can and can't do in terms of featuring their product. So like a very common example of this is like, if it's a food, like a kid under 4 can't be in the photo without a parent present or something like that, right? So you can't, you know what I mean? So there's like certain legal compliance things. But those are on the brand level. So it really just depends.
Okay. And I'm curious what kind of managing these different creators are, because this is not exclusive. So you don't actually, like, you're not managing them full time or anything. But I heard you tell a story one time. I can't remember where I heard the story, but you, on occasion, when a brand will come back and give extra edits and stuff that wasn't in the original brief, that's adding more time to the creator, you'll pay the creator additionally out of your own pocket for the extra time that this is now resulting. Not, and for not your fault at all, right? It's the brand adding more work, which I think is awesome. So I'm curious how you kind of approach managing all these different creators that you don't actually manage.
Yeah, so it definitely, so my perspective when I've always approached this is that like um I am going to ensure that the process is as seamless as possible with the client, with the brand, ultimate client, right? And if that means that we're gonna have to do a little bit of extra work that wasn't contracted, so that the overall process of working with Trending Family is just super pleasant, and they think of us the next time they want to run a campaign, I'm going to do that, and even if it means eating into the margin a little bit, right? Because let's face it, like some influencers are very difficult. Some influencers are amazing to work with, right? And you better believe, like, the ones that are amazing to work with and understand that this is just how things go sometimes, that, yeah, there's going to be one more round of edit or that like one more tweak to the caption, right? And they're cool with it. Those are the creators that we continue to push for certain campaigns because it just makes our life that much easier, right? And I think one of the things that I'm trying to do with my Creator Wizard content is help educate creators that they need to look at this thing as a business, right? And understand that if you can look at it from this long-term mindset and understand that if you can help a brand or help an agency out in this one pinch, and yeah, maybe do, this small little edit that takes you literally 2 minutes to do, they're going to remember that. Right. It's one of the things I teach in my course, is like, seriously, like you need to be like a lot smarter about the ways in which you're interacting with your clients who are paying your bills, right? And so yeah, so there are some creators who still just don't get it, but that's something I'm trying to change.
Fair enough. And so from your perspective, you've been on both sides of brand deals. What leads to the best results from a campaign?
Man, so I think that what leads to the best results is ensuring that the strategy and the influencers that are selected for the campaign align with the campaign goal. So in my experience, there's three main goals for influencer marketing campaigns. So there's conversion, right? Which is where there's some very specific action that the brand is trying to drive: sales, right? Clicks, downloads, redemption of a coupon, traffic to a website, whatever. So that's conversion focused. Two is content repurposing. That's like a very big type of campaign that a lot of brands do these days where, yes, like, posting the content on the creator's platform is a part of it. It's interesting to them, but what they really want to do is use that content for paid media, right? And turn around and run Facebook ads or Instagram ads or YouTube ads or whatever with that content, right? So that is oftentimes like a growing type of campaign type in my experience. And then there's brand awareness, right? Which is we just want a bunch of eyeballs on this campaign, spread the word, right? And in my experience, every creator is stronger in certain areas. Like some creators are amazing at creating super, super compelling content that people love to watch, but they're not so great at driving sales. They're not super influential in that regard. Same, the converse is true as well. Some creators are amazing. They might be micro creators or micro influencers, but man, they are influential and people buy when they recommend a product. Right. And so I think it really just kind of depends on the campaign goal type. And that's something that we absolutely discuss with our clients at the very outset of any conversation. Is like, okay, what is success for this campaign? What is a win? Because we are literally going to construct the campaign strategy around that goal.
Is that something you've noticed where micro creators have a higher conversion rate because they have a more tight knit community? Understanding that, I know that as a creator's size gets bigger, obviously their conversion rate's going to decrease just because of how big they are. But kind of taking that into account, have you noticed that micro creators tend to have a higher conversion rate than bigger creators?
Um, I guess it really depends on content vertical, I would say. Because again, like the most important thing to note is that following size is not a good proxy for influence at all, especially in today's landscape. Like, yeah, you could look at engagement rate, for sure. But I think one thing that's really important to note is that followers comments, likes, engagement can all be purchased inauthentically, right? You can like there's a lot. It's actually a very big problem in my experience these days of people buying likes and buying comments and buying views and all this stuff. So I think brands have not um, gotten up to speed quickly enough in detecting that type of fraudulent behavior. But I think the one of the things that I'm trying to teach creators with my content, with my course and everything, is creating case studies for yourself, right? Asking, the clients that you work with if they can share some of the data from the campaign, whether it's conversions. I know a lot of brands still consider that type of those type of metrics as proprietary, but some don't. Some are like, sure, we'll share with you how many products you sold, or how much traffic you generated, or whatever, and then you can spin that into a case study. So the next time that a brand reaches out to you trying to say like, hey, have you ever done this type of campaign before? You'll be like, yeah, here's a case study, right? So I don't, not nearly enough creators think in that way. But that's something I'm trying to help change.
And from the brand side, is it looking for things beyond just metrics like likes, comments, followers, because those things can be bought? Or is it educating brands on how to vet different creators and determine how authentic their following and engagement is?
Yeah, I mean, it's that for sure, but it also is helping them understand that creators are production companies in a box. They're creative services. They are production companies. They have marketing and distribution, right? So it's like they have the ability to do so much and consolidate. Maybe you had an ad agency doing that before, or you had a production company, or you had to go out and hire actors or actresses to like star in this content that you ultimately have to shoot, right? Because most traditional brands are used to having a production budget. Maybe you're going to spend $250,000 on the production, and that doesn't even include the media costs to be able to run it on TV, or run it on Instagram or Facebook, or whatever, right? So I think being like that's something I tell creators all the time is like understand the value that you're bringing to them, right? And so I think once brands also understand that there's a lot more than they're getting than organic distribution platform with the creator, that helps them understand why it's worth it to hire certain types of creators.
I know this next question, it'll definitely be a case by case basis depending on the creators and the brands, but how do you balance giving creative freedom to the influencer, but want to make sure that the content they're creating is also on brand for the brand? Like what's that balance look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think it's really important to pick the right partners, because there are some creators that are cooler with that than others, right? Understanding that there is this going to be this kind of like back and forth to ensure that the content doesn't feel like an ad read, but at the same time, still gets those sound bites in. And actually, this is actually a really great topic, because most brands have a traditional PR strategy, which is that they will shotgun out hundreds of emails to like offering gifted product, right, to a bunch of creators and see who bites, right? And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that tactic, but if you want control over the content that's ultimately created from that approach, that's when paying an influencer becomes a lot more makes a lot more sense, because then once you're compensating them, there is a certain level of expectation that the influencer needs to have, that this is a business transaction, right? They're going to ultimately want a little bit more control over it if they do want those sound bites of like, hey, like go head into your local Walmart to like pick up this product in the grocery section or whatever, right? If you want the influencer to say that so you can cut it into a 30-second ad, like you got to compensate them for that, right? And so I think creators more and more understand that, right? That yes, there is a balance of like not wanting it to sound like an ad, but at the same time, they want to inject their own personality and their own idiosyncrasies into the content to make it engaging. So I think that it's really there. It definitely is a balance of both when you do these types of campaigns.
This whole process feels very hands-on, and I've heard you say that you're obsessed with the idea of scaling this process. Do you have any ideas on how that's going to be done?
So I think it's challenging because there are literally hundreds of brand deal platforms that have cropped up over the last number of years. In fact, I did a series on TikTok and social, 50 brand deal platforms in 50 days. And so I analyzed like tons and tons of these platforms. And one of the things that I think is very challenging is that creators have platform fatigue, right? Where it's like, I don't want to sign up for another platform. I don't want to do any more applications, because it is kind of a crapshoot to some degree, right? You'll like apply for 15 different campaigns, maybe hear back on one, right? Especially if you're an aspiring creator, right? So there's been a lot of like software plays or software solutions that have tried to help with scalability and this kind of thing. But ultimately, in my experience, it's always has devolved back to email, right? No one wants to like correspond through these platforms. So it's like, oh, we'll just go back to email, I guess. Right. And so, honestly, it's still an issue, I think. As much as I have banged my head against the wall trying to like figure out a scalable solution for this, um, I haven't cracked that nut, and nor have I. I mean, there has been some players that have been like, okay, we're going to go full court press. We're going to raise $50 million. We're going to raise $20 million or whatever, and just like go out there and try to like collect as many creators on the platform and like throw a bunch of bodies at the problem. Yes, we have some software, but there's still a bunch of bodies on the problem in sales and all this stuff, right? So I don't know. I'm still not convinced like that'll ever become like actually like a programmatic advertising channel. I'm just not. I'm just not sure.
Didn't Instagram try to tackle that problem? Like, wasn't there for maybe it still exists, but for a period of time where brands could go on and create? There's like a dashboard
Yeah.
for creators and brands. Like, if Instagram can't
Mm-hmm.
solve this problem, who else? Like, who's going to?
Yeah, I mean, YouTube famously bought FameBit, which was like one of the early influencer marketing platforms, and they ultimately wound it down and turned it into something called like Brand Connect. But I think it's hard. It's and Snapchat has one. Instagram. They're all trying these types of platforms. But the marketplace, the ecosystem is just so fractured that I'm not sure if there's ever going to be like one winner, honestly.
Fair enough. And I want to jump now to Creator Wizard. So this is within the last 12, 18 months you started this?
Yeah, last June, I think was when I first uploaded my first video, May maybe.
Okay, so about a year at the time of recording this, and it's the old advice channel, right? Like you
It
cleared
is.
that channel out and
I
dropped
did.
in. Why'd you make that decision instead of starting from scratch?
Um, it's a good question. I thought about it at the time. I was just like, you know what? Should I create a new channel from scratch? Should I just rebrand this current channel? I looked into it. I talked with some creators like, is it possible to revive a zombie channel, that you haven't posted on in like 5 years? And they basically all said like, yeah, do it. Why not? Like I honestly, there was not much thought that went into it. I was just like, I have this channel. I'm not doing anything with it. I'm just going to private all the videos and start uploading content that I actually like. Right. So that was as much thought that went into it.
Were people, because you said it was kind of a dormant channel for 5 years, what was the reaction like from the people that followed you from 5 years ago when you're posting a whole new content type now?
Yeah, it was like, what the heck is this? I don't remember subscribing to this channel. Like, I'm unsubscribing. I'm like, okay, thanks. Yeah, I expected there was going to be a certain level of that. So I think the other really cool thing I would say is that, like, we have built up such a um intimate connection with our audience over the years that people have been relatively like willing to just kind of like follow along and consume whatever type of content we create. Doesn't matter the topic. Yes, it's more relevant to others, to a spot, certain, there's only going to ever be a certain segment of our audience that's interested in like creating content, being a creator. Right. And so, yeah, there's some people that have just been like, hey, I'm, just happy to follow along with this new journey, this new chapter of your life. So that's been a cool thing.
And so it's been a year, and if I just did some quick, simple math kind of on how many videos you've uploaded, over 120 in the last year. Like you've been pumping out videos. What's the upload strategy right now? Is it like 2-3 times a week? Like what's that look like?
So I do every Wednesday, and then I do a live stream every Friday. So that's the cadence right now. And honestly, it's just trying to, pump out as much content as possible because I just have so much to talk about. So much. I use like my comment section and my DMs and my email as content fuel, honestly. Right? Like it's just the questions that I'm getting over and over and over again. Things that I saw that I see running the agency. Like I just I'm uploading a video like soon in the next week or two about the 3 mistakes that I see creators make when brands email them, for example. So it's like there is an advantage, I would say, to having like some experience on both sides of the fence, because it's like I can actually tell you like I'm experiencing this. Like I actually just tweeted literally like 30 minutes ago. I was like, like we're trying to recruit for a paid campaign right now for the agency, and a lot of creators who are managed by a manager, their email address in their bio or in their business inquiries area is like influencer name at agency.com. And I can't get a hold of these people. I can't get a hold of them. No one's responding. And I'm emailing multiple influencers at the same agency. So it's like, that's if I was a creator, I would be mortified, right? Because it was like there's these opportunities that are coming to me, and my manager, who's supposed to be doing this on my behalf, is not responding in a timely fashion. So that is like worst case scenario, right? So these are the types of things that I'm like, my advice to creators is like, look, if you're going to hire someone to do this for you, you got to have some level of transparency or some level of like service level agreement. That's my engineer talk, right? You got to have some service level agreement with your manager about how quickly they're going to respond to you to opportunities that are coming to you. So it's like, these are the types of like advice that I can give to creators. And whereas like, someone who hasn't had that experience wouldn't necessarily have that perspective.
That's interesting because I've always wondered what, like, from the brand or from the agency's perspective, when it's influencer name at agency, I was like, if that means you have an email for every single influencer in your roster, like, did that all forward to one email? Like, that was just
Probably does. Yeah. Yeah. Probably all goes to like one email address and they have like some sort of triage system, but they're not triaging it fast enough. That's all I know.
and you're giving for the most part. Like, I know you said you have a paid thing tomorrow. You've also you have your brand deal challenge, the brand deal, of course, but for the most part, you're giving all of this information away for free.
Yeah.
And you
Most
mentioned
of
that
it's
earlier.
for free.
So why are
Yeah.
you giving it away for free?
I gotta be totally honest with you. Like, we have had so much success in our careers and we're so blessed and we continue to have so much success that I think I've just reached a point in my career where I'm driven by I'm fulfilled by helping other people succeed, honestly, like completely candidly. And so it's like if I can help someone get paid twice as much money on a brand deal for the same amount of deliverables just based on simple negotiation tactics, that's incredibly fulfilling to me. That's what excites me these days, right? And so like moving into the next decade of my like career or my life or my, what excites me when I wake up every day. It's helping other creators. And if I could like help someone avoid a pitfall or a mistake that we made early on in our careers, that's what drives me.
And then it's just deepening the connection you have with the people who you're helping, who then, and you never know which one of your creators or someone who's going to end up working at one of those brands that you want to work with. And then a brand, you know what I mean? Like, it's just long term. So I think that's super interesting.
It all honestly, like we have been driven. This is maybe a little woo woo for this podcast, but like, we're like big believers in karma, right? If you put positive energy out there, you help someone out without any expectation of getting something back in return, that comes back to you. And it has come back to us time and time again over the years. And so like I'm a big believer is like, yeah, I'm like pumping out a bunch of positivity or a bunch of positive karma out there. And it's, honestly, I don't know when it's going to come back. And it's, yes, I have a course now, and that was something that I didn't plan either at the beginning. But ultimately, I think this is all going to come back. And I'm a big believer in the fact of this is like a podcast focused on like social media and business and things like that. And it's like my one of my major pieces of advice that I give to creators and just anyone in general is that when you help someone, when you help people, you will ultimately find a way to make money. If you put as your mission, I'm going to help people. I really truly believe that will come back around, and the money will come somehow eventually.
Mm-hmm. And do you want to plug the course Brand Deal Wizard, right? It's cohort
sure.
based, right?
Yes, it is. So it's called Brand Deal Wizard. You can go to branddealwizard.com. It is cohort based. I do it probably so I'm actually enrollment is opening next week. And so it's probably going to be already closed by the time this podcast live, but that's okay. You can go to branddealwizard.com to join the waitlist. But it's a 4-week program. It's live Zoom. It's live Zooms. It's very interactive. So, I was trying to decide whether I should make this course like completely asynchronous, like all on demand type content, binge like Netflix. But one of the like in the so here's if you don't mind, I actually think this is quite fascinating, like how I actually launched the course, which was that I did private coaching, one-on-one coaching first, because I got advice that like, hey, if you want to do a course or if you want to like give more detailed information to people like this, prove the framework out with coaching first. And so that's what I did. I coached a number of creators to prove out the framework and like had amazing results, had amazing success. And so I spent like many months doing that first. And then I decided that I was going to do it cohort based, because what I ultimately learned was that it was actually the loneliness aspect of being a creator that people were most craving, which was like hearing from other people's experiences working with brands, hearing from other people's experiences with their content strategy. That's what was most desired right? In a course format like this. So, yeah, I could have a private Facebook group and have it on demand content, but it still would not replace having a live Zoom meeting where people could like actually like interject. Yeah, I'm like teaching, there's instruction, there's structure, but people could interject, like be like, oh, let's actually stop, like go back a slide. Can you explain that? Right. And then people will be like, oh yeah, actually this exact thing happened to me when I did a brand deal like 2 weeks ago. And then you go off on this tangent for like 10 minutes, right? It's like, that is so much more powerful than a traditional course. And so I was so happy that I did this type of format because it just, it just, the results and the transformations that people have been able to experience because of that has been so much more powerful.
So, I mean, now is probably the most ideal time to have a course like this, to have a channel like this, providing this information, because more and more people are wanting to become influencers, YouTubers. I think there's a survey or something that where actually I have it written down here. I didn't have it written down, but some where there's a survey where more kids want to become YouTubers and influencers more than ever before. Everyone wants to be a creator. And I'm curious, in your opinion, why you think so many people want this job.
Wow. Well, I mean, it's a fundamental shift from when I grew up and probably when you grew up, right? Which is, so I have a 4 and a 7-year-old right now. And literally from the time that they were born, they literally have never watched regular TV. I mean, maybe like in hotels, right? But it's all been like Netflix and YouTube. Actually, funny story. Like literally, I remember one of the first vacations we went on when my kids were a little bit older, and we turned on the TV in the hotel room, and like a commercial came on, and they were like, "What? Why'd you turn off the show? Like, fast forward it, like or whatever, right?" Or they didn't even have any concept of the fact that they're like a show couldn't be like completely on demand, right? So it's a completely different paradigm shift, right? So the content that they consume, the people on those channels, that just feels normal to them, right? Also, I think the other thing too is that, at least for like, let me speak specifically for my kids, is that our kids have grown up seeing my wife and me as entrepreneurs, right? And so because this is what we do for a living, and we've been able to spend so much more time with them our entire lives, like rather than like a traditional career, traditional 9 to 5. I mean, what could be better than creating content about the things that you love and being able to provide for the people that you love at the same time, right? And so I think this old notion of having a traditional 9 to 5 and having that like job security, I don't know. I think to a lot of, aspiring, creators, or, kids who are aspiring, to trying to figure out what they want to do in their lives, just doesn't really make sense. And it's actually, that's actually kind of a point of friction, because I remember my parents, or like, that generation, they had a much more established vision of like, okay, you work at like maybe 2, 3, 4 companies for your whole career, right? And then you retire, right? And so there was always this thing of like, millennials like skip jobs a lot, 1 to 2 years, and they like move on to the next thing. But that is just kind of like what our generation has always done, because there was no pension. There was no safety net that could be like looked forward to at the end of an illustrious career with 4 or 5 companies, right? And so in fact, when I did quit, or when we did become like full-time creators, I remember there definitely being like, oh my gosh, like how could you, you know, get rid of that job security or whatever and all that stuff. And my counterpoint to that has always been like, I actually think it's more risky to be in a 9 to 5, because you can be laid off at any time. Yeah, you can bust your butt and like, try to, suck up to your company and like all this stuff. But if times get rough, and if there's an economic downturn, you better believe that your company's not going to think twice about laying you off or letting you go. Right. And so, in fact, if you have a robust presence on social media, or you're a creator and you have multiple income streams, you can't get fired overnight. Right? Yeah, maybe your income will start to slowly decline, but it's not going to be a cliff. It's not going to be a precipitous drop, right? Whereas if you're fired from your 9 to 5, that's quite precipitous, right? So it's like, I actually think that investing in owning, right, your revenue prospects is actually a much more, if you have the appetite for that. I'll get to say, I'm not saying everyone is going to be a creator and have want to do that, but if you have that desire, heck, I actually think it's a safer bet for the next generation than a quote unquote 9 to 5 job.
Mhm. I agree. Do you think though that part of the reason kids want to be YouTubers is they view like the lifestyle, the quote unquote lifestyle that comes with it, they see on camera, but isn't necessarily one behind the scenes? Do you think part of that is the allure? It's kind of like when people wanted to be movie stars for the fame, now they want to be YouTubers for the fame as well.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, there's definitely like a romanticism for sure about what it's like to be a creator. I would say that um, the type of content that we create is not like the a party lifestyle like this, that because like a lot of young kids, like especially like teenagers and stuff, like that's what they're like thinking about at that age, right? So those are the types of creators that they're drawn to, and they think that's what it's like to be a creator. But there's a whole generation, a whole segment of the creator population that is not glorifying that type of lifestyle, and they're portraying relatively wholesome things, right? And so like there are other creators, other people who aspire to that too, right? So yes, there is a certain amount of romanticism about it, but yeah, um like I will say from a work life balance perspective, I work harder and longer hours than I ever did at a 9 to 5. Right. So like have no illusions if you want to be a creator. It's there's a lot more stress, there's a lot more anxiety, there's a lot more uncertainty that goes into being self-employed and running your own business than there ever is. Like it's not like when you're at a job, you can just like, punch out, go home at 5 o'clock and just like sit on the couch and like watch TV and like zone out. No. Like, like there's constantly something to do on your to-do list as a creator.
But the golden question, I already know the answer to this, but I'm just trying to make a point. Were you happier working the 9 to 5 job, or are you happier now where you're working around the clock?
Oh man, like the level of fulfillment that comes, the level of opportunity that comes with being in control of your own destiny is unrivaled. Like you're never uh like you're never never have to like literally answer to anyone. I mean, yes, you have to maybe answer. You're beholden to the platforms that pay you, right? So you can't necessarily can't do anything you want at risk of being like demonetized or something like that, right? But I mean, we haven't even talked about this, but like especially if you own your audience, like have a robust email list, for example, and you have a direct connection with your audience, um, you are in control of your own destiny, right? So yeah, I mean, there's nothing like that feeling, especially if you have any sort of like entrepreneurial bent.
So with so many people wanting to be creators, if I'm a new creator or a smaller creator, what is the best way I can start monetizing my talents as a creator today?
Yeah. So I just honestly going back to the email list topic, I think is really, really critical because regardless of what platform you choose, regardless of what type of content you create, you always, always, always need to be in control of your or own that audience, right? So at the very, very outset, I always encourage creators to start an email list and create some sort of exclusive content or some sort of compelling reason for your audience that you're starting to build to follow you outside of that platform. Because as we've seen over and over and over, we've been on social media for over a decade at this point. Um, your organic reach always declines on every platform, right? The percentage penetration of the people who have said they've clicked follow, click subscribe, the percentage that you're able to reach them just declines naturally over time. And so email is the oldest and most traditional way to have a connection with people who want to stay updated with what you're doing. And so you'll always be able to maintain that connection with them. And so I know it's kind of like a sidestep answer to that question, but I don't care what you create. Honestly, I really don't give a crap. So just make sure that you own that audience so that you're not beholden to any of these platforms to reach the people that say they want to stay in touch with you.
I'm going to shamelessly plug my sponsor, TruFan, right now because that is their whole business is helping you collect and enhance your first party data, so you own your data and it's not someone else doesn't own your own data. So I'm just going to give them a quick plug. Everything's linked in the show notes down below, so you can find it. But one thing you mentioned at the top of the podcast,
real quickly, this topic we're talking all about brand deals and sponsorships and stuff like that. Props, Jacob. There we go. That was a very organic branded plug. So yeah, go check out TruFan. Good work there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But one thing you mentioned at the top of the podcast that I've actually had multiple discussions with TruFan CMO about is live commerce, because something she was super interested in. We chatted about it a couple months ago, and I know you and your wife have been doing that with the Amazon Live, I believe.
Yes.
What have you seen from that? I know it's huge business in China, like insane numbers coming out of China. What have you seen here in North America so far?
Man, it's been an absolute. It literally, I would say, has like taken over our life over the last 6 months. Not even joking. Like we started on Amazon Live right before Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And so right out the gates, we just saw incredible numbers in terms of like shipped revenue. So actually people actually like watching our live stream, talking about products, and then going and purchasing them, and then us getting like a commission of that. I mean, it's like literally tens of thousands of dollars. So it's like in terms of like shipped revenue, right? So it has been a whirlwind because not only Amazon Live, but so many other players like Walmart and Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram, they're all seeing that this could be a potential massive market over the next, because like you said, it's been huge in Asia for a number of years. And as with a lot of things, the West is typically a couple years behind them in terms of like adoption. Yeah, I mean, like Amazon Live in particular, because we make a lot of content on there, is investing very heavily in creator acquisition, getting a ton of people to like pump out content on the platform. But honestly, like we're looking at this in a very interesting way, which is that the amount of commission that we make from doing the streams is quite trivial. I would say it's not like a huge percentage of revenue in terms of our overall mix as creators, but it is a brand new distribution channel for us. So brands and agencies that reach out to us for traditional sponsorships on Instagram or YouTube or whatever it is, we could say, hey, this sounds great. We'd love to do that. We also are doing Amazon Live now. If your product is sold, we go and look to see if their product's sold on Amazon. And we said, hey, would you like to add, and we upsell, would you like to add an Amazon Live integration into this partnership? And so we have been able to very quickly, and like that's another really good note here, which is that that's actually the way in which we look at YouTube now too, because the amount of AdSense that we make from our views on a monthly basis is like literally probably 2 to 3% of the amount that we make from brand integrations on our YouTube videos, right? So it's a very similar dynamic that we're looking at, like live commerce and Amazon Live and things like that, which is that we're not going to make a ton of money from commissions, but it's the brands that want to actually do sponsored live streams and then repurpose the content. Remember, we were talking about content repurposing. There's a lot of value in being able to like add our live stream, that portion of the live stream, onto their product description page on Amazon, right? And be able to do sponsored ad. I mean, we haven't even talked, like Amazon has a massive advertising business now, right? So like doing sponsored like listings and stuff on Amazon and being able to have content to serve on that sponsored listing and things like that too. So it's like, we're definitely like trying to think a little bit next level here in terms of like, yeah, we're going to be investing a ton, we're doing a live stream every single week on Amazon Live these days. And so, yeah, it's a big time investment for us too. But like, that's another thing. As a creator, you always have to have your eye on the ball of like, what's going to be the next big thing in like 5 years or 7 years, especially if you want to like have this be a business for you, right? So you can't just like sit on your laurels and like, in 2 years when your like YouTube revenue declines, your brand deal revenue flow is decreasing, diminishing, be like, oh crap, what am I going to do? No, like you invested the time, right, in creating a new distribution channel for yourself so that you can, if you need to, shift your business to that. When the ultimate social media wins shift, which they always do.
And I think with Amazon Live too, like it's only going to get bigger and bigger. Like I fully expect that product to be built into Twitch. Like I know they're doubling down on live content. Like I believe they just signed a deal with the NFL to do Thursday Night Football live on Prime and Twitch next season. So it's only going to get bigger and bigger, to your point. So you guys are there early, similar to how you were early with YouTube. You're early here now. And just for context for the audience, just to give them an idea, we don't need numbers or anything, but can you just give a sense of what all your revenue streams are right now? Because you have multiple, like you've talked about a couple, like what does that all look like right now?
Yeah, sure. So it's like, brand partnerships is still a very, very big part of our business. I mean, I think because we are family friendly, like I said, we are not controversial at the slightest, we have built up these really long-term relationships with brands and especially agencies, who represent lots of brands over the years. And so, we're diversified. We have, YouTube AdSense revenue. We have, once upon a time we had merchandise. Haven't really done that much lately because it's just been more of a headache than anything. And so it's like, yeah. And then, I have my course revenue and things like that, which wasn't a revenue stream for us 6 months ago, so it's like, as a creator, it's like crazy. Right. So like, but brand partnerships, honest, candidly, is like a very big part of our business but it's not because that's like a conscious strategy. I mean, it is, but at the same time, it's just like, it's so much more lucrative than anything else that we do. Although I will caveat that to say that, like, I do think that like, courses and like, premium content on the Creator Wizard side of our business, in 3-4 years could potentially be quite lucrative. It's not yet, but again, it's like looking out and extrapolating what it could be like. But yeah, as of today, like brand deals represents like a pretty substantial portion of our business.
But to your point, like I think the industry is moving that way, like with more premium content on the Creator Wizard side, and how we talk about owning your data, it's also owning the product as well. So it's not just where like, so you can benefit on that. Have from just on kind of on that topic on the trending family side, have you had any creators trying to get equity in the companies they're working with? Because I've heard of stats starting to happen more and more.
Yeah, I mean, I think that happens for creators who are like macro, who are at the very, very big level where they could justify getting equity, where it was like their level of influence, their name, being attached to a startup, would benefit the company so much that they're willing to give up equity. I would say that that's still like a chosen, it's a small percentage of the top creators who even think that way, they would value equity more so than like, getting paid. Also, it's the creators who have enough of a revenue stream elsewhere, like of actual dollars, where they could make that deal, right? They've got to have a certain level of brand deal flow or merchandise flow or premium content, whatever, direct fan monetization, etc., Patreon, etc. Those will still be kind of a bleeding edge type mindset for bigger creators. Yeah.
This might be a difficult question, kind of distill into one answer, but what would your best advice be to young or smaller creators today that want to grow and want to become full-time creators?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think that we've talked about it a little bit, but like having a long-term outlook is really, really critical. I'll give um a small example of this, of like how you need to think about it in the lens of like brand partnerships, because that really is my wheelhouse and it's what I think about a lot. Which is that, let's talk about how long it takes to actually get paid for a brand partnership. Okay. Because this is very illustrative of like the business mindset that you need to have, the sales mindset that you need to have when entering into this type of economy. So, number one, if you're going to be doing prospecting for yourself, right? You go out there, you're cold emailing brands that you think would be a good fit for you. It's probably going to take a couple weeks to get a hit, if not a month or two, right? Sending out emails, trying to doing follow-ups, getting responses, right? So that's about a month, right? Month or two, whatever. Then when you get a brand on the hook, you hook them and they're like, okay, this is interesting. Let's proceed. Probably going to take a week or two to negotiate, right? Then another week or two contracting with the legal department, probably. Then maybe 2 to 3 weeks creating content, possibly. Another week or two of revisions, right? The brand comes back to you with feedback and they're like, hey, you need to change this, send us back an edit, right? Then maybe you're not going to post for another week or two, right? Because the campaign doesn't start until August or August 15th or whatever. Then when you finally post it, you have to wait net 60 or net 30, right? Another 4 to 8 weeks to get paid. I don't even know, like, what was that? Like 4 or 5 months that we added up there, right? But it's like, it's going to take you a long time to actually get that money in your bank account, right? So whereas if you have a brick and mortar business, right? It's very like, you're not dealing with cash here, right? Maybe if you're a creator, right? Yeah, like you're getting your like, people to like pay on Patreon or like, pay you $5 for a shout out or whatever it is, right? Yes, that's a lot more immediate. There's a lot more immediacy there. But if you're wanting to make a lot of money doing brand partnerships, and they can be very lucrative, you have to just start thinking about this as a business from the outset. I don't care how many followers you have. Like if you have 1,000 followers, 10,000 followers, doesn't matter. Start becoming more savvy about what it's going to take. Think of yourself like a business, right? Because let's face it, like so many creators, this was thrust on them. They got into it again for the love of the craft, and they didn't think they were going to have to do this. But by virtue of just educating yourself and investing in your knowledge, you are going to be so much further ahead than like literally 97% of creators out there. And you're going to have so much less anxiety when it comes to where your next like paycheck is going to come from if you want to do this as a career.
How often do you reflect on the whole journey? Going back to medical devices to art flipping to when a $700 a month at 6 months for a brand deal was a big deal to taking the jump full time to where you are now. Like, how often do you reflect on the entire journey?
That's a great question, and I can't remember the last time someone asked me this. So you're a very good interviewer. Good job. Um, um, so my wife and I make a point to talk about our highlights of the day, pretty much every day. And for a long time there, we were cataloging them in a journal. So we have had the ability to like go back and like look at what we were thankful for 10 years ago. Um, it is something that we think about a lot. Sometimes we just like sit and I'll just say to my wife, like, man, remember when we were in that studio apartment, and we were like, dreaming of what could be our lives and what could be our future together. So it is something we reflect on. I will say though that like, um, the level of like stuff in our life, level of work, and especially with like raising two young kids and running the agency, doing Creator Wizard, running, my wife, and I running our channels. Like it's just sometimes we're just doing so much that it's hard to like take a breath and be like, wow, look at how far we've come and like all this stuff, right? There are milestones in our life for sure where it's like very apparent to us that we're definitely like very blessed at like buying a house like a lot earlier than a lot of our peers, for example. Like that's one thing where we just thought of like, wow, like that's amazing, right? To be able to do that in the Bay Area of all places, right? Where it's like astronomical, like real estate prices, right? So it's like, yeah, we're super, super thankful that we're able to like do that. But it is something I think we need to get better at like just acknowledging from time to time because it is it's a true blessing.
I know we're running out of time here, so I'm going to jump to my final question that I ask everybody at the end of every interview. And I like to flip the script a little bit for the last question. So instead of me asking the question, it's you, but it's not to me. So pretend you have a crystal ball. You can ask this crystal ball any question and you'll get the 100% honest answer. What is one question you'd want to know the answer to?
Wow, that's a great question. Um, I think that the question that I am always asking in my life that I would love to have the answer to is that how can I help the people in my life achieve their dreams? Because I feel as though if you spend your life, your friends, your family, your partner, if you spend your life concentrating on how you can help support them and doing everything in your power to help them accomplish their goals, in my experience, people can't help but do the same in return for you. And that's the best advice that I've ever gotten. So if I could ask a crystal ball that, it would be to ask them for the people in my life that I care about, what path do I need to take to help them achieve their goals? Because ultimately that's how I will achieve fulfillment in my life.
I love that. No one's ever asked that question in that way before. And I think I just love it. I think it's a great question to ask. But I want to thank you so much for taking time to be on the podcast. I want to give you the floor. Where can the people find you? Plug anything and everything you got right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I appreciate so much the opportunity to be here. This is a very wide ranging discussion and not one that I'm usually able to have. So I really do appreciate it. And yeah, so you can contact me. My email is probably the best way to contact me is just justin@creatorwizard.com. I'm on all social media, like Twitter is where I'm most active. So I'm at Justin Moore TFAM, TFAM. And then I also have like at Creator Wizard everywhere, like YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, et cetera. So yeah, I would love to connect with anyone that wants to chat.
Awesome. Well, make sure everything's linked in the show notes down below so people can find it. And I want to thank you once again for taking time to be on the podcast. And I want to thank everybody for listening, whether you've listened the entire way through or you only listen to bits and pieces. I really appreciate you taking time to check this out. Everyone, do me a big favor. Go and follow Justin. Go and check out Creator Wizard. Like I said, I'll make sure everything's linked in the show notes down below so you can find it. If you'd like to follow me, you can find me everywhere on social media at the Jacob Kelly. Feel free to come and say hello. My DMs are always open. As always, today's podcast is powered by TRUFAN. Thank you once again for listening, everybody. We'll talk soon.